Today we're going to talk about vitamin D. Vitamin D is not only a vitamin, but it is actually also classified as a hormone. Now let's first go over levels and deficiencies and things like that. Deficiency levels, depending on where you look, is under 15 or under 12, and it's measured in these things called nanograms per milliliter. That's not so important as the actual number itself. However, under 20 is generally considered insufficient, and in some sources, under 30 is considered insufficient. And so there's all sorts of data out there. From what I've compiled, between 30 and 50 is an optimal range of, or even 35 to 50 is an optimal range of vitamin D for an individual to take advantage of all the functions of this hormone called vitamin D. And so when we talk about the functions of the body, now, by the way, statistically, 1 in 7 people in the world are deficient in vitamin D, according to those standards. And in the United States, it's only about 10%, which is still a lot. But when we look at insufficiency, that number in the United States rises to about 50%. So again, lots of people are not getting enough vitamin D. And a lot of people tell me, well, can I get it from the sun? And we're going to discuss that. Now, first off, the functions of vitamin D. Vitamin D functions in almost every system in your body. And so it's functioning in the respiratory system. It has a role to play in your sexual hormones. It has a role to play in a number of things like preventing a number of types of cancers as association with decreased risk of cancers. It plays a huge role in the immune system. In fact, almost every single cell you have in your immune system has a receptor for vitamin D, which means we haven't even begun to explore all of the functions of vitamin D, including in the immune system. However, we do know that it helps activate these cells called cytotoxic T cells, which actually kill viruses and cancer cells and things like that. And so really, really important stuff. Another thing that vitamin D has been associated with is decreasing the risk of the flu, so decreasing risk of influenza. It's also associated with the decreased risk of autoimmune diseases, which are becoming more and more prevalent, and there are hundreds of different types of autoimmune diseases where the body attacks itself, and so these replete levels of vitamin D, which means you're getting a good amount, optimal amounts of vitamin D, are preventing lots of these disorders, diseases, and illnesses. And so super important that we get enough vitamin D. Again, massive function throughout the body, not just what we used to think it was for bone health. Of course it is for bone health, but it's for all sorts of other functions in the body as well. And that's why it's so essential that we get optimum levels. And so when we look at amounts of vitamin D we want to get, if you look at supplementation, Linus Pauling Institute, which I consider the best research source on the that you can find on vitamins and minerals, they recommend 2,000 IU a day. I like that recommendation as a general recommendation. However, you definitely want to get your blood tested to see where you're at. You may need more than that. Harvard School of Public Health says it takes, for some individuals, 3,000 to 4,000 IU a day. Those are international units. That's the measure that they use. It takes 3,000 to 4,000 a day just to maintain normal levels. Not to get to normal levels, to maintain normal levels. So again, your requirements may be higher. So let's get to the whole thing about the sun. People say, well, can I get it from the sun? Well, yes, you can get vitamin D from the sun. I'm going to explain that in a real nerdy way, a little biochemistry in just a second. But we are finding out that some people are not making this conversion very well in the skin. And then there are multiple other reasons. If you use sunscreen, you do not convert vitamin D in the skin. Even as low as an SPF of 8 will prevent the conversion of vitamin D in the skin. If you have darker skin, you produce less vitamin D. As you age, you produce less vitamin D. So there's a number of factors that can interfere with vitamin D production in the skin. And maybe you're in an area like I am. I live in Phoenix, Arizona, and it's really hot here in the summers. I don't get a lot of sun in the summers here. And when I do, I put sunscreen on. So, I don't really get enough vitamin D from the sun. People that are in climates where it's very cold in the winter, they're not getting a lot of vitamin D because they're not out in the sun then. And so, again, there's lots of factors that play into that. Again, I don't want to make this video too long because I have a number of other things I want to cover. So here's the nerdy part. If you need to speed through this, you can. But here's what happens. UV rays hit your skin. You have this thing in your skin called 7-dehydrocholesterol. It will get converted to a precursor, and then the heat in the skin will actually further convert it to something called cholecalciferol. It's vitamin D3. This is the same type of vitamin that you purchase in the store and is in most multivitamin formulas. Vitamin D3 is the human form or the animal form of vitamin D. Ergocalciferol is D2, that's the plant form. According to a number of studies, the vitamin D3 actually increases your vitamin D levels in your blood about 1.7 times more than vitamin D2. So again, it's the optimal source of vitamin D if you are supplementing with it. But again, we can make this stuff in our body if all is working well. Okay, we may not reach optimal levels. Who knows what's involved? That's why you get your blood tested. Now here's what happens. So we take that vitamin D3, that cholecalciferol, we put it in the liver, we convert it to something called 25-hydroxyvitamin D. We take that. Now that 25-hydroxyvitamin D is what your doctor tests when you say, hey doc, I want to see what my blood levels of vitamin D are. And that's those numbers I was talking about, optimally between 35 and 50. Okay, so 25-hydroxyvitamin D levels. But this is not active yet. Your body has to take that, put it into the kidneys, and then it activates into 125-dihydroxyvitamin D, and that is your active form of vitamin D. All right, now that being said, let's cover a couple more things. Absorption of vitamin D. So should we supplement with it? I believe we should, but again, get your blood work tested. Try to shoot for those optimum ranges. I believe we can go too high. Now, as far as toxicity, there are people that they've done studies where 10,000 IU a day for months, and they did not reach toxicity levels. However, I do not recommend 10,000 IU a day. Usually when you reach about 100 nanograms per milliliter, the blood level, when you reach about that number 100, that's when toxicity symptoms start to occur. And the big one is hypercalcemia, which means too much calcium in the blood. It starts depositing calcium in tissues, can damage organs. This is no good. I don't recommend you take that much. I don't think you need to be near that much. Maybe if you were deficient and needed to get to that level, you could do it for a period of time. But again, for maintenance, you generally don't need that much. Your blood work is going to tell you how much you need. And so based on that, based on what your numbers are, we'll determine what you need to ingest to get your blood levels up to normal, and then retest it and see, hey, am I there yet? Do I need more? Do I need to back down a little bit? And this is the smartest way to do it. Okay, so when we look at absorption of supplementation, okay, of vitamin D, whether it be from, it's not super rich in food sources. Okay, we do have some things that are enriched with vitamin D, like dairy products and things like that. Some fish sources. But essentially, we get a lot of our vitamin D from the sun. If we're not getting it there, then we might be insufficient or deficient. Again, 1 in 2 people in the United States are insufficient, which means you're under that 30 number. Not so good if you want to optimize all these great functions. They're also finding out that even skin cancer, vitamin D may be protective against that to some degree. So again, these are ongoing studies. And so when we look at it, again, back to this absorption thing, you cannot absorb fat-soluble vitamins without fat, which means you have to take your fat-soluble vitamins with food, and food that has some fat in it. So if you have a multivitamin, if you have this vitamin D supplement that you're taking separately, make sure you're taking these things with food. They absorb better with food. They won't absorb very well at all without food. And so I always say shoot for at least 10 grams of fat or more in that meal that you want to get good absorption of those fat-soluble vitamins. So I covered a lot of topics. This is getting very long. If you have any questions, let me know. I highly recommend you get your vitamin D checked. Let's get those levels to optimum. Stay strong. I'll see you next time.